Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick-Taking Table. I'm Santa. Happy holidays, especially today, which is Christmas, and happy late Hanukkah. Today we'll be covering Ugly Christmas Sweaters. It's a game by Hunter R. Henniger. And the hook to Ugly Christmas Sweaters is it's a drafting game where each card has little parts of sweaters on them. And as you play to the trick, you'll be trying to win parts of sweaters. But after that, the cards you play to the trick will then become the parts of sweaters that you're trying to win. So you're playing with what you're going to draft in the future. Really cool concept. Let's go to the table and I'll show you how to play. The deck in Ugly Christmas Sweaters is in general made up of 4 suits: red, purple, yellow, and green. And they're numbered 1 to 12. But on these 4 suits, there's also 4 different symbols. So candy canes, trees, bells, and snowmen. It's interesting because there are kind of groups of the symbols here that change throughout the numbers. So I guess a good example would be on purple here, the 4, 5, and 6 are trees, but in red, the 4, 5, and 6 are bells. Also, there is a patch card for each of the 4 suits. And what this card does is it essentially is a wild in certain situations, but I'll explain it when it comes up during the trick-taking portion and the knitting portion of the game. Here we have the game mostly set up for 2 players. So each player will get a hand of 9 cards, and then the rest of the deck is given to them as their draw pile, because you draw in this game after you play to a trick. Each player will get a Secret Santa card, then they'll also get a scoring end of scoring round card, which I'll explain in a bit. 4 of the deck cards will be dealt up here. This is the initial draft. And then the final part of setup, as you can see up here with the 1, 2, 3, the 1 will dictate what the trump number is in the game. So we shuffle this. Turns out 1 is the trump number in the game. Then 2 is the trump color in the game. So green. And then finally 3 is going to determine what is important in the game in terms of sweater types to make. So maybe you want to make all green sweaters, or maybe sweaters with all trees on them. And there's a bunch of different ones, but so this will also be shuffled. And so all green, and then all trees are the fads. And I'll explain what that would be for when you actually craft your sweaters here. But this is the initial setup. And then you'll shuffle these, and whoever gets the 1 will be start player. So let's say that candy cane over here is start player. So the trick taking in Ugly Christmas Sweaters at 2 is very interesting because you'll actually be playing 2 cards each to the trick. So if candy cane is lead here, let's say they play the 3 purple. So when it comes to Mickey Mouse has to follow suit, but they can follow suit of 2 different things. They can follow suit with any purple or any candy cane symbol. So looking through their hand here, they can play this candy cane, they can play both of these purples, this purple patch, and this candy cane. So they can actually play 5 different cards from their hand. So since trump is 1, maybe Mickey really wanted to win one of these, or draft one of these cards up here, they can play that 1, comes back to the candy cane player, and they can play any purple or candy cane suit. So they play this 5 yellow. And finally, it comes to Mickey, and they can play this because it's candy cane and it's also trump. So they're hoping to win possibly first and second draft. Then you'll see who won the draft. So trump number beats trump color. So that will be first. And then trump. And then finally lead suit would be third. And then offsuit, non-trump color or number will be 4th. So then the drafting works out in this order. So Mickey Mouse will draft first, then second, and they'll be the lead player for the next trick. And then Candy Cane will draft 3rd and 4th. So say Mickey really wanted to get a green to make an all green, and then a tree. So they'll take these 2, and that will be for their sweater crafting part, and Candy Cane will take these for their sweater crafting part. But so then how it works is Mickey will be start player again, but the cards that were in the trick will come up and be the new cards that the players will try to draft in the next round. Now, just to show you how the sweater crafting works, is you have left, bottom, and rights of different sweaters. And you can combine any ones you please, maybe if you're trying to hit a certain fad, or hit your Secret Santa, or get consecutive numbers. There's a lot of different ways to score in this game. So you can also, if you were to draft these two cards, you can split them apart and be working on two different sweaters at the same time. Because maybe that's advantageous in this situation, because if I put that there, the sweater wouldn't be all green, or if I put that there, the sweater wouldn't be all trees. So maybe Mickey is starting on two different sweaters at this point. So after both players have situated their sweaters, the lead player will lead, but not before they draw back up to 9 cards in their hand. So you always have 9 cards when you're ready to play the trick. So starting the next round here, if Mickey were to lead purple snowman, I'll show you how the patches work. So what the patches are is they're able to copy the number and the icon of the previously played card. So if Candy Cane really wants to play that, they can copy the icon, snowman, and the number 11. So even though it's a red, so they'd be playing a red 11 snowman. And then coming back to Mickey, maybe they don't have any purple and they don't want to play this patch yet. They can play this 9 snowman. And so after they finish that, you would then determine the order and keep crafting sweaters. So let's jump forward to the end, because the end game is triggered when either player completes their 3rd sweater, or when the deck runs out. So fast forwarding to the end of the game here, Mickey triggered the end game because they completed 3 of their sweaters. So looking at the sweaters here, there's a bunch of different ways they can score. So they get 2 points for each sweater built, so they already have 6 points. Then you get 2 points for 3 consecutive numbers on their sweater. So this is 153, so that also isn't. But over here we have a 9, 8, 7, so they'll get 2 more points for that sweater. Then you get fads. So up here it was all green or all trees. Unfortunately, they didn't get any of those. They were close on this. So if that was trees instead of bells, they would have gotten 3 points. But they still get non-fad colors and icons. So over here, they have a fad or non-fad matching icons of snowmen. So they get a point for that, and then a candy cane, so a point for that as well. And then Secret Santa. So looking at Mickey's Secret Santa, they had Barley here, who really wanted snowmen in red. So they wanted 2 snowmen and 1 red. And over here, we got 2 snowmen and 1 red, because this one counts as the snowman, and this one counts as the red. So they would get 3 points. Finally, they would compare their points to the candy cane's points, and whoever has the most wins. And that is ugly Christmas sweaters. So this game surprised me. I don't know if it's the theme or the art style, but I wasn't expecting such a thoughtful game where there's a lot to consider. So in the scoring, you start off with completed sweaters, and then you have consecutive numbers, and there's a moment where you realize, oh, I could score for so many different things that I have to consider every single card I play, right? Because I'm going to be drafting it later, and every single card I draft, and whether I want to go for Secret Santa or just go for the consecutive. You have so many routes to score that there's so many options, and you're always able to pivot, I feel like, as you're playing. You can always see a different strategy that's within grasp. And a quick note on the art and graphic design itself, I really liked it. I think the symbols and the suits and the sweaters, while being clear when you're actually playing the game, do look like ugly Christmas sweaters. They have, like if this was the flowers here, they have these same patterns going throughout. So when you see the card, it's visually distinct, and it helps when you're building them. It does feel like you're actually crafting ugly sweaters. The game itself from the bat is filled with decisions, because even the first time you're playing a trick, those sweaters are super important. It's kind of how you start your process of building. I feel like every turn is important. Every time you draft cards is important, because it's a race in the end. I like this most at 2 players, and I think a lot of the run-throughs I saw online were of 2 players, and I think it's because you get to play 2 cards in a row, which is unique, and I really like that. But also because I think there's a lot of leniency in how you have to follow suit, because you can follow either the color or the symbol. So when there's a lot of leniency and you can play a fair amount of cards in your hand, it's actually kind of nice when you play one of your 9 cards to then have to only be able to play one of your 8. It's like a very small amount of change, but you could feel it. And I don't think I've ever had to play offsuit, or very rarely in this game I've ever had to play offsuit. But it's nice in a 2-player when you're limited on options as opposed to in the 3 or 4 when you usually aren't limited until that deck kind of runs out. And when you're drafting at 2, you get to pick 2 of them, and it feels like you're accomplishing a lot. And then in addition to that, if you're really crafty, you can complete 4 sweaters on that final knitting phase rather than just 3 in the 3 and 4 player games. And that just feels a little bit more rewarding. And that following suit is interesting. The fact that you can follow suit on either really opens up your hand. And I do feel like that's necessary, because if you're going to be drafting with the cards you play, being super limited would be pretty tough, because then you're forced to play cards that you don't really want to draft later. So it's a nice way that they implemented the openness of options, but still limiting the following suit. I like the sweater crafting too. I think it's cool to leave yourself open and try to finish a sweater later, or have 2 parts of it to try to fill that final slot. It reminds me of Blend Coffee Lab, which kind of has a similar 3-piece card situation. In that one, you're building cups of coffee. But it's nice that I don't think 3 is too much, and it's almost like the right number to kind of push your luck and try to get the right shoulder. And it also allows for really interesting blocking. You can see maybe your opponent, especially at a 2-player game, is looking for a right shoulder, so maybe don't play them or something. Or anything that would fit their consecutive numbers or icons. There's a lot of cool, it's not like hate drafting. I guess you can eventually do hate drafting in this game. But if you have something in your hand that's really good for your opponent, you could just not play it once it gets sucked out through the trick taking. But it's really cool, the interaction between playing the trick or having to maybe hold a card back from your opponent in this game. So that is Ugly Christmas Sweaters. There's a lot to this game, and if you can kind of wrap your head around the deck makeup and all the different ways to score, and really understand the kind of nuances of this game, I think you'll enjoy it. There is a lot to take in to kind of understand the game state in a lot of situations, Secret Santa, and then the different 2 trumps and the fads. But if you can kind of get a hold of that, there's an interesting trick taker there. And this is, I think, a little slower pace, a little more thoughtful game. I felt like a lot of my choices, I had to kind of mull over a little bit before I played to the trick. And if you like that kind of game, if you like a game where there is a bit more information on the cards and a bit more to kind of consider when you're playing a trick, I think you'll like this. At 2, I liked it the most. 3 or 4, there was kind of a little too much for me to kind of understand what those opponents were doing. But with just one other opponent, I could kind of understand the game state and know maybe to block certain cards or not play, or when to lead and what to lead in interesting ways. The drafting was also a little bit more fun at 2 for me. And if you like that, if you really like maybe a more like interesting back and forth, I think you should check this out. If you're also feeling a little festive, maybe check it out too, because a Christmas trick is always fun. Thanks for watching.